Residents in Jackson, Mississippi need to boil their drinking water. Chula Vista, Hollywood, Santa Barbara, Fresno. High schools in every one of these cities were hit with hoax active shooter phone calls this past week. Seemingly to gain political points and at taxpayer expense, 50 asylum seekers were flown from San Antonio, Texas to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts without anyone on the ground in Massachusetts having received advance notification that they were coming. A sitting U.S. congressman has declared he will introduce a bill to ban all abortions nationwide. Independent incidents, unified in the enormity of their injustice. Also, as of the 12th of September, the Fork fire around North Fork is 85% contained. Ukraine has been able to push Russian troops back or out of significant Russian-occupied territory in northeastern Ukraine. The National Railroad labor strike seems to have been, at least temporarily, averted. And the residents of Martha's Vineyard have, according to reports, been warm and caring and hospitable to the asylum seekers who arrived in their community. Another young immigrant, Jamal Jan Kochai, now an author, knew no English in second grade when his Sacramento area elementary school teacher stayed after hours with him one-on-one every day for an entire year to teach him to read and write. After searching for her for 20 years, she recently surprised Kochai at one of his reading events. What does all of this tell us? There are warm and wonderful people in our world, and there are treacherous and toxic people as well. We all live together on this blue planet, our boat, so to speak. Our communities and families represent our boats, our nation, our church, our vessels in which we are traveling. And on every level, we are bungling our way along, sometimes brilliantly and sometimes less than admirably. And our boats are in jeopardy. Our personal and collective well-being face storms, our homes treacherously endangered. We need to seriously assess the boat. So here's the bottom line. In my estimation, we're all longing for a secure place, a boat that doesn't leak, a home that is safe, offers adequate shelter, a place where basic needs are met. Home is belonging. Home is where there is rest without fear or worry, like Jesus in the boat. We may have heard interpretations of this story that Jesus was so exhausted from his nonstop people work that he just dropped off to sleep every moment he got a chance. Now that might be true, but in doing so, he encouraged his followers to do the same. Be still and trust that this safe place will carry you to your desired destination. Rest in unknowing. When gale force winds blew up, Jesus' followers likely wakened him, hoping that he would grab another bucket and start helping them bail the water out. But he didn't do that. He turned to entirely unexpected methods. There was no conversation. He simply acted and restored serenity. He restored home. Other gospel writers tell the same story. It must have impressed them. In one such telling, the words Jesus spoke to the storm's fury are translated as peace. Be still. Storms are not equated with peace. Danger is not conducive to peace. Fear doesn't call forth peace. When Jesus wants to restore well-being for his followers, he calls for peace. We're called to do the same. You may have heard the adage, no one is free unless all are free. The same is true for peace. We cannot truly have peace unless there is peace available for everyone. When someone in our community doesn't have a home, where can they belong? When no care is given to ensure adequate green space in every part of the city, how can harmony and peace be achieved or maintained? How can those who have been relegated to living in communities with heavy industrial waste or high levels of carbon emissions know peace? How can people so systemically kept out of spaces and opportunities that afford equal advantage truly live in peace? This is where justice and peace meet. Flimsy non-engagement is inadequate. Mere passivity or pacifism can easily become withdrawal. There must be justice so that peace has a chance. We reaffirmed this commitment, exactly this commitment, earlier this service. But how will we do this? We will not find home without seeing those with whom we share space, in our families, in the places we work, in our city, and in our church. Our boats will take on more and more water as the storms around us rage, unless we vigilantly maintain and repair. What does it mean to be messengers of peace, carriers of belonging, people who walk gently on this planet? In a recent TED Talk, and in her latest book, Bittersweet, author Susan Cain writes about a video produced by the Cleveland Clinic that unexpectedly went viral. The clinic has produced a number of these types of videos, all designed to encourage empathy in the employees new to their medical environment. This 4-minute video is shot inside of the hospital, and it pans across faces: patients, caregivers, professionals, visitors. There is no speaking, but there are captions placed around various people as they appear. Things like, visiting Dad for the last time. They found something on the previous mammogram. How will I pay for this? Finishing up a 12-hour shift. For those viewers who allow these messages into their spirit, they begin to feel what these humans are feeling and imagine what their place in life is like. It's transformative to watch. Quickly it brings tears. Truly, this is one way we become instruments of peace. Not solely focused on my experiences, my history, my needs, but expanding our hearts to include many others. This is how we begin to see one another as humans, not by labels foisted on people groups by those wanting control or looking for political advantage. So if you'd like to see that video, you can do an internet search on the 2017 Cleveland Clinic Empathy video, or just let me know and I'll email you the link. We cannot assess our boat adequately without hearing actual stories. Taking time to validate one another's importance by spending time truly listening. I wrote about this in this past week's e-news, and I won't go into it now, except to say we will not find home without seeing those with whom we share space. Jesus' followers' boats took on water as a result of a storm that overwhelmed them. When, not if, we realize our boat is taking on water, what then? When we realize that peace has wilted, that what we should find as home brings high alert, and that no one truly hears us, what then? Our boats take on water when we carry increasingly heavy loads, kind of like the luggage that we schlep through airports or try to stuff into our cars. We're loaded with fear, with polarization, with aggression, guilt, anger, and simply with overwork, and so much more. We notice this in the way we drive, in ever a shorter attention spans, in our snap judgments, and at night when sleep eludes us. Boaters speak of stress cracks in their vessels. We can identify with the cracking we feel as a result of stress too. The stress of medical results, the stress we feel when someone dear to us has passed or there is estrangement, the stress of financial burdens personally, in a church, in a business. These heavy loads cause cracks in our boats, and then we begin to take on water. Ignoring or glossing over stresses will not repair the boat. That's pretty understandable when we think about actual literal boats that are meant to be seaworthy. But what we do personally and collectively as organizations, families, or communities tells a different story. We assume that doing things will magically change without acknowledging that if we keep doing what we're doing, we will end up where we are headed. We suppress our pain and our suffering. We even feel the need to stop talking about death as the weeks and the months go by. And yet, pain and suffering and death are universal. If we don't have permission to acknowledge our suffering, we will think that we're the only ones experiencing that. We have not been given permission to sit with our pain. We're urged to think about something else, to find something to fill that void, somehow giving the impression that we should be different than what is obviously our experience. We can learn to sit with pain without becoming morbid. We can learn to look directly at disappointments, saying, this has been a disappointing episode or era, without jeopardizing hope. We can learn to discern what has brought us to disillusionment without becoming cynical. In fact, we must learn to look at all of these realities in order to move through morbidity and hopelessness or cynicism. Ignoring widens the cracks. Our culture subtly or even quite blatantly rewards letting go and moving on. We're urged to see the silver lining in the cloud, to find solutions or at least reasons for our suffering. But that doesn't work. It just does not. The reason there is pain and suffering and death is, of course, because we are human. Nothing more, nothing less. A more useful way to live abundantly or peacefully in a kaleidoscope of sadness and joy, light and dark, loss and gain is to think in terms of moving forward, not moving on. Yes, life goes on, but not as it always has. Nor do we want to move on just as we've always been. True peace is not the absence of grief, but learning the art of folding this same grief into the colorful garments of daily life. As we've so often said, if our pain slips over into depression, we must seek professional help, and there is no shame in that. It's no different than seeking help for hypertension, for example. So what do we make about it all? How can we be people of just peace? People who find ways to mend our boats so that we have seaworthy vessels. We don't just need a bigger boat, but we must begin to assess our boat personally and collectively. What's causing the stress cracks in ourselves, in our families, and in our church? We can become people of peace personally so that we can recognize areas of injustice that are standing in the way of everyone finding peace. We, like Jesus, can look for and utilize unexpected methods too. This can be as personal as adopting practices of empathy as taught by the Cleveland Clinic. It can be to consciously become someone who listens to other people's stories. It can be as corporate as finding new ways to address community needs that are entirely beyond what we have implemented up to this point. If there's a housing crisis in this city, how can we help? If there are no safe places for youth to meet simply to have fun, can we create that kind of a space? I leave you with an encouragement from Isaiah, the ancient Hebrew prophet, who said, "The mountains may shift, and the hills may be shaken, but my faithful love won't be shaken, and my covenant of peace will be with you," says Yahweh, the one who has compassion on you. May we journey with this guide. Amen.